Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, where we dive into the world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. In each episode, we talk with the technicians, engineers, and experts who keep helicopters flying. Because at the end of the day, no maintenance, no mission.
Southern Utah University, they did a study. VAI worked with them to put together and actually formulate all the numbers and look at the forecast. And the shortages were just overwhelming. I think that was just looking at the U.S. It is huge impact that's going on. And I've seen the numbers as high as by 2030 to 160,000 plus shortages. So in between pilots and mechanics. So that's on the global scale. It's to me, and this is where I talk to the younger people. It's the perfect time to come in the industry because, like I said, the demand is there. The pay is competitive versus the years of experience versus what the pay is now. I started at U.S. Airways right out the Army. It was $14.75 an hour. That's what they paid everybody. They didn't care if you had 10 years experience. That's what you walked in at.
Hey, welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, Leslie Ferry and I sit down with James Simmons. He's the founder of Avalatus and a seasoned aviation professional. During the discussion, we explore his career journey in aviation and gather his insights into the rotorcraft maintenance industry. James shares his experiences from his military service to his current role in workforce development with VAI, highlighting the challenges and opportunities within the MRO sector. Learn about his contributions to the Vertical MRO Conference and his passion for fostering new talent in aviation. This conversation is a must-listen for anybody interested in the future of aviation maintenance and the pivotal role of leadership and training. Welcome to part 2 of our conversation. If you missed part 1, you can find it in our previous episode. Thank you to this episode's sponsors, Rotorcraft Support Inc., Robinson Helicopter Company, and HeliLadder.
It's obvious from talking with you that you've had a very successful career after getting out of the military. You've done many different things. And before we jump in and talk more about what you're doing now, I was just curious if you have any kind of advice for maintainers who are getting out of the military and getting into civilian life. And then also, do you have any advice for operators who are looking for qualified, talented, trained maintainers to bring into their operations, how they can better work with the folks that are getting out of the military and try to recruit that way? We've got that huge issue right now of recruiting qualified maintainers and getting new people into the industry on the commercial side of things. And so just wondering what kind of advice you may have for both the maintainers getting out of the military and then the operators that may be looking to hire those individuals.
So two things, for the new maintainers, one, obviously very simple, especially coming out of the military. Now, the military and the FAA has made it easier for transitioning soldiers to get their AMPs. The AMTCC, which is the Aviation Maintenance Technician, basically it's the program that you get the certificate that says, hey, you've attended a 147 school, which we call it your military experience. And you can walk in anywhere and test with that now. I would call that the number one priority for the technicians is get your AMP. I don't care if you don't think you're going to need it. If you don't think you're going to have to extra, it's a fallback.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a fallback every time. If something doesn't go the way that you're planning it, at least you are not going out, because out of all of the veterans that I've dealt with for AMPs, procrastination is probably 99% of the reason a lot of them don't have it. It's just it's not the qualifications. It's not it's nothing more than I haven't done it yet. And it's like, just do it, Yeah. The other thing, which is be adaptable to what the industry requires. Because, and what I mean by that is nobody, as much as everybody loves the fact you could put together the greatest plan for your transition or for exiting the military, but there's no guarantee, nobody's going to put a helicopter in your backyard. So you've got to be able to go where the work is. And that is a fundamental part of the industry, whether it be fixed wing or whether it be rotor wing, but it's the reality of the world that you have to go where the operations are. So if it's like, well, I don't want to go there. Well, you're gonna have to do something. But to get where you want to be at. So those two things are major factors to me that come into play with people that are transitioning. For the operators, and it becomes a little more unique. Just if it's a certificate operator, obviously the A&P is more of a requirement, and absolutely is a requirement. Being able, and the same thing with the transition, but being able to interpret and understand and know the strengths and weaknesses from the individuals in their military experience and what you want to pull for it benefits you greatly. And what I mean by that is the military, a lot of transitioning soldiers, as you know, and I know from we do the MilCiv workshop and we do resume reviews and with BAI and help put all that stuff together. But they're not the greatest of putting all of their experience and knowledge into the civilian terms. They don't have that experience yet. They don't know all of the details. And so we help them with a lot of that. But at the same time, it's almost like the operators, if you're going to look at this market, you better do some research on your own and start learning, a little bit of the military acronyms or learning a little bit of the military knowledge, because at the end of the day, like I said, you're just trying to assess the strengths or the weaknesses of the people, whether or not you want them. So if they don't have exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah. So there's two things when you talk about the shortage of technicians, and this is where the workforce development industry advisory council comes in, that there's two factors that we look at. One is, yes, there's a shortage, and we know that. But within that shortage, there is also a gap. And so if you look across the hangar floor from, the 12 to 16 year experienced technician, there are less of them than the other populaces. So 6 years, 8 years and under, there's a populace of 20 years more experience, there's a populace of, and then you have the shortage that exists in the middle. So what we're trying to do is the two different pathways. One is trying to bring people into the industry through high school pathway programs and different efforts with the schools, and bring that all into play. And the second one is that we know people are going to be accelerated into positions of responsibility truly before they're ready. And so that's where the training and the knowledge and everything comes into play to try to at least help and assist to get people that experience they need. Because once, those senior people retire, it's a whole nother onslaught of this gap is going to be running the industry. And so then that's almost, it's a risk within itself. And so we identified that and figuring out how do we do this? Because if we have to basically, you're still going to have to have your working body, and now you're going to have your management body, and there's going to be less to choose from. And so, so starting up with the pathway to try to influence the younger generation to take pride. And at the same time, from the rotary wing side of the house, especially because the fixed wing side, the airlines, they are deeper pockets. And that's, we are fully aware of that.
That information you talked about, is that historical or is that specific to the time frame that we're in now, where you're seeing that gap in the middle experience?
So I think it's the time frame now. I know when I came in, it was all baby boomers. The boomers, you had the same, you were talking years till you moved on iron floor. Yeah, that was guaranteed. When I came in, it was you were a young pup and you just got bossed around. It didn't matter. Everybody had more seniority than you, and they were thick as thieves. And it was, but now it's like I said, the seniority is there. There are experienced technicians there. There aren't as many. What I've seen, and we've discussed this on end, COVID took a huge chunk out of the industry. So you've had all these points of, like I said, the different economic downturns. Well, you also had technicians that exited the industry and didn't return. And they said, I'm tired. I'm just not doing it. I don't want to sit here and have to deal with this. I just want to go, I want stability, or I want to be able to make a living. And so we understand that aspect, to where the numbers are lower as well. So Southern Utah University, they did a study. BAI worked with them to put together and actually formulate all the numbers and look at the forecast. So that study was done, I think, 5 years ago, and it was a 15-year study on what the industry was going to be doing. And the shortages were just overwhelming. And I think that was just looking at the U.S. So globally, it is huge impact that's going on. And I've seen the numbers as high as by 2030 to 160,000 plus shortages.
Wow.
So in between pilots and mechanics. So it's and that's on the global scale. So it's and to me, and this is where I talk to the younger people, you're in the perfect time to come. Yeah. It's the perfect time to come in the industry. Because, like I said, the demand is there. The pay is competitive, you're versus the years of experience versus what the pay is now. It's so much better than what it used to be. So as the technician side of me, that's one thing I'm definitely proud of is like the pay has finally gotten on the board. I started at U.S. Airways right out the Army. It was $14.75 an hour. That's what they paid everybody. They didn't care if you had 10 years experience. That's what you walked in at. So now I know, brand new technicians right out of school are upwards of over $25 an hour. So that's, and it's decent. It's so, but we're trying to nail down, like I said, that recruiting effort that we got to bring people into the industry from the very beginning and then try to set the pathways in motion. And we're working both sides simultaneously. We're working maintenance and rotor wing pilots. And that's unique within itself because rotor wing piloting is a whole nother ball of wax. And we're trying to gap that 200 hour to 700 hour bridge. That's what we're trying to create the pathway for. How do we make that easier on the pilots?
And I'm curious, and this will involve some speculation, but on the human factor side of things and root cause analysis, when you consider where we sit today with this gap in experience, especially in that middle section, what concerns does that bring to your radar when it comes to the industry as a whole, when you consider human factors and root cause analysis? Rotorcraft Support Inc., where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified Part 145 repair station and OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry.
So the one thing from the mechanic standpoint, and I recognize I actually wrote a thesis with Emmett Riddle. So 121 requirements and the rules for the crew rest cycle of maintenance, it's always been, whether it be 121, 135 has none. So, that's a whole different realm when you're talking about the 135 world. But 121 does have regulatory requirements for rest cycles of the mechanics. Now, when you read it, it is 4 days within a 30-day cycle calendar that they have to have off. And so what I laid out in this paper that I wrote was to basically, I showed the calendar and said, here, so I could work these guys 10 hours a day, all these days. Right? As long as I'm willing to pay them overtime, and then I can give them 4 days off. And it's like, and that's in that motion of what the FAR actually reads, and it's not like, it doesn't break it down into a daily cycle like it does pilots. And that was how I kicked off the paper. It was like 568 words take up the regulatory requirement for crew rest cycles. And there's like 128 for mechanics. And it was like that's how I signified the difference, So I was like, yeah, that was and that was amazing to me. But I think the recruiting effort and the shortages are hitting the industry harder. The more I talk to more operators and the more that I'm talking to different recruiters and everything else, there are certain aspects that it's almost like it's bone dry, especially when you're in the helicopter market. There's a demand right now for, Chinook CH-47 mechanics. They're very slim. They're hard to find. And nobody can really, it's almost like the why. Well, all these people, the military used to be one of the feeders into the industry consistently for that. And then, of course, if the military numbers drop off, then the industry's going to fall off as well. It's going to have a point that impacts that. And so trying to understand where all these shortfalls exist, how do you get everybody to get on board and to recruit more? And that's why we realized we need to go back and just begin to feed the pool, and to get people in. And a lot of people, or they look at maintenance as, hey, it's this little section of my career. It was cool while I did it, while I was on an hangar floor. Now I'm ready to get off and go do other stuff. So there's a whole bunch of different dynamic factors I think that come into play with that.
Yeah, a lot of what you're describing is potentially as a problem is fatigue. You know, here you're working crews, whether it's an air crew in flight or a maintenance crew on the ground, we're asking these folks to be at work more than they're anywhere else, which is fine until fatigue sets in. And you talk about, some of the challenges that fatigue creates, and we talked about external pressures to accept missions and all the things that we do. In law enforcement, there's fewer and fewer folks that are signing up to do that job, which in turn makes fewer and fewer folks that want to go in or can go into public safety aviation. So same thing, we're asking our air crews, hey, I know that you want to have days off and to have a balanced life, but that's not going to happen right now because we're in a position where we can't, there's no people to fill you on overtime. So you work or there's no mission.
Right.
So I think some of my fears surround the fatigue side of things. And, again, just look forward to coming up with innovative solutions. Like, hey, how do we get more people through these doors?
You're going to have things that come to it that, I don't want to say square off, but they're going to square off because you have FAR Part 5 that just went into effect. So you're going to have the requirement of SMS programs that are going to be hitting the operators. And then you're going to have hazard reporting. And then you're going to have that part of the SMS that gets completed. And now you have to have a management response. So when you have the shortages and you have the stress and you have all of these factors that come into play, but now you've got this regulatory body that's going to come in and review. And then what does that look like? And that's what I said. I don't want to say that they're going to square off, but they're going to square off. There's going to be a point where, what's going to happen, and I don't want to see this, is that if incident A happens and they walk in to do the investigation, and all of a sudden they're pulling out all the SMS has logs and saying, well, yeah, you should have seen this coming. And then it's like, well, then how effective is the tool?
Mm-hmm.
Now we need to assess why are we putting it in motion and why are we doing it? If when the point of SMS is to be ahead of it, not behind it, it's easy to walk in afterwards and say that. But the whole purpose of having an SMS is to say we're in front of it and we're being more predictive and we want to catch this before it happens. Okay, then that means now, unfortunately, the managers or the aspects need to do it. And how do you do it? Well, if I need to put more emphasis on the recruiting, and that's what you're going to, I don't want to use the word poaching, but it's out there. There's going to be, there's obviously there's a way that people are going to find the employees that they want. They're going to get them one way or another.
Right.
Hiring bonuses right now for mechanics is ridiculous. I know for Gulf of Mexico, there are operators who are paying travel where they never paid for travel before. So there's different incentives that are coming on the board now that were never options before or you even thought about it. I remember, I worked in the Gulf of Mexico. I was like, we don't pay you to go to work. You drive out here, that's on your dime. So it's going to be interesting. I don't want to see it. I hope we can prevent it at the end of the day. But
yeah, it's kind of a good segue. You've got some unique experience and some unique insights into not only the recruitment side, but the safety as a whole and in general. You've talked about a little bit. Can you talk about how you're employing some of these thought processes into the company that you founded and talk a little bit about your company as a whole?
So Avalatus, what it does, I basically move forward with what I call professional education and development, right? Dealing with the operators or working with my customers, ensuring that they have the correct aspect for their organization that they're looking for. And so I curtail the training. I'll have a sit down with whoever the representative may be, whether they're director of maintenance or quality management or whoever it is. And we try to figure out exactly what their need is. So right now, like SMS, and that's a hot topic, right? Part 5 coming across the board. And within that, we look at the elements and we break it down and say, okay, well, root cause analysis and human factors, right? So that's one of an ideal class. So operators will now have to do root cause analysis under their SMS program. Well, okay, how do you provide the value out of that root cause analysis? And so that's one of the things I'll do is I walk them through the entire process, how to properly conduct an RCA, what you're looking for, what are the key elements, and how to put it all together so that it provides you value at the end of it. Because it's easy to check the block and be like,
Right.
and then look at it as also for the organizational level and say, okay, how are we going to implement it, put it together, make it easy for you so that your employees understand and how to put it to use so that it does benefit you. And then also looking at internal operations. So I'll, whether it be assessment or evaluations of internal operations, operation policies, procedures, and help edit that. So that's the core business foundation that Avelatus does. And actually now I'm working on, one is bringing a 147 A&P school to Huntsville, Alabama. So I just signed a MOU yesterday with Alabama Aviation College that we're working on the 147 certificate to be able to put that together. So that's part of that workforce development and everything. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. It'll be definitely be a fun ride. And then also do the professional development and the training and that goes with that. But for the A&P school, we're looking at actually doing dual enrollment with high school students too. So Alabama just recently changed its requirements for high school graduation where you actually have to have a pathway, career path certification. So that plays into that. And we've already met with the city of Huntsville and everybody else and everybody, of course, they love it. They want to be part of it. And so that's going good. That is what Avelatus, in a whole does. I try to sit here and bring, which by the way, a lot of people, Avelatus, it's Latin. So to fly away, that's what Avelatus means.
I was just going to ask where you came up with that name. Now it makes sense.
Sense. So yeah. So I wanted something different. I was just like, I wanted it to be a little bit unique. Training development, and then of course the assessment advisory. That's pretty much the nuts and bolts of the business. I enjoy, like you said, I don't think anybody learned aviation on their own. I know for a fact nobody has. And just realize, it's kind of like until you realize there's a need, you're like, I don't need to do this. And then you realize like, no, this is what actually it's needed. There's stuff needed out there. It's interesting because now it's just, opportunities keep presenting themselves and I'll chase every single one that comes up. So when I was at Verticon, I saw the you guys announcing that. I was like, hey, wait a minute, why am I not part of this? So I reached out to Leslie and said, hey, let's put something together. So and it's good. So it's great.
So anyone that is listening to this podcast, whether they're a DOM or an owner or a maintenance technician, and they're interested in the training opportunities that you offer, how would they best get in touch with you to see about, an initial consultation and how you could benefit their company in sharing all of this wisdom?
Thank you to our sponsor, HeliLadder. Enhance your fall protection and maintenance efficiency with HeliLadder, the industry standard of ladder workstands. The iconic orange MX5 system is fully modular and compatible with countless aircraft models for any type of operation, making you money by preventing accidents and reducing maintenance errors. For a free quote and special discounts, visit heliladder.com. Focus on your work, not your balance.
So the easiest route, I have avelatus.com, avolatus.com, and we have a contact us or a meet with us link on that website, and they can click and enter in the information, and then it'll reach out to us. And then also james@avelatus.com is my email, and they can email me directly. I don't have a problem with that. So, it's always nice. I like to see, it keeps me going, right? Just like when we met and we first sat down and what classes, I can come up with 101 classes, but then actually realizing what provides the best value. That is what it's really fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that the organizations don't realize, the advantage to having a third party come in and do it is because it's unfiltered, it's direct, and it's in your face. And that's what I bring to it because, and you're going to see this at the conference. That's what's really nice about it. It's unfortunately there's times when the industry has certain requirements that come into play, and this is one where we drill down. And and I wanted to. I was sitting there working on stuff the other night, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna have to put up a preface for this class because I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the accidents. And I know my intent is never to point fingers, but I want to sit here and make sure nobody feels like they're singled out because I don't know who this audience is going to look like, and so I got to be careful with all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, since you're kind of gotten onto this angle, can you talk to us a little bit about the 3 different classes that you're going to be offering at the Vertical MRO conference in Irving? I don't want to give away all the secrets and all the good stuff, but for anyone that is thinking about attending in Irving or on the fence, let's tell them a little bit more about what your classes will entail and what they can walk away with.
So there's going to be 3 classes. One will be the root cause realities, which that's the one we're going to look at various NTSB cases. We're going to look at actually rotary wing maintenance related incidents that occurred. And we're going to kind of dig into the, when, where, how, why, and try to identify the root causes or what were the contributing factors and what are the substantial players for prevention. And what we're going to do on it is kind of like a check on learning internally within our organization, right? So one of the aspects I give in it, not this class, but my root cause analysis class and the human factors class, one of the things I get into, and actually that's one of the other classes we're going to do, so that'll be fun. But I like to bring out the fact of what are the organizational factors. So it's really easy to go, here's the human factors, and I want to point the finger at the technician. And so what I do is I grab the director of maintenance or I grab whoever and I say, okay, well, let's look at the organization. Let's apply that same dirty dozen. And what are you doing as an organization to make sure that doesn't become the technician's responsibility? And so we ask those same 12 questions basically and go, hey, here's the deal. Are you providing all the right tools? Are you providing all the right resources? Are you providing, right? So and so that's one of the things with the root cause analysis. But the second one, so the maintenance, risk, and compliance in a high op tempo, we're going to focus in on, that's the EMS, firefighting, all of the different utility work, basically all the high op tempo law enforcement, or that true on-demand commuter operations or the 135 operations that exist out there, where it is a base mechanic, where they're on a rooftop, where they're in these different environments, and all these different factors come into play. And go, all right, what can we do? What can we look at? And what exists that we can mitigate our risk as much as possible? How can we create or generate free, value-driven steps that'll help increase our safety, right? I go from the owner's perspective. I don't want to, my intent, we can make everything super expensive. It's not going to bring the value to the organization. So what I try to do is sit there and go, okay, well, here's the freebies. I'm going to give you the freebies all day long. And then we're going to figure out how to do it, right? And put it together. So the managing the maintenance and compliance, that's one of the biggest things. We'll go into some of the stuff, what the FAA is looking at, what they're finding. I have direct connections with different inspectors, and they kind of give me the insight of, oh, hey, here's what's new. Here's what we keep running into. Here's the repetitive stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. Because again, until you see that outside perspective, nobody's really tracking it. They know what's going on in their certificate. They know what's going on with their stuff, but it's not just you, it's the whole industry, So, and then the third one, of course, being the root cause analysis and human factors. And that'll be the third class. And like I said, we're going to go into what are the elements of a root cause, how to perform a root cause, and give some examples of that, and then formulate it and structure it so that it could actually be repetitive, and train the people up to be able to do it. And then we'll look at all of that human factor stuff, the organizational factors, how it all plays in. I try to go from a different perspective. The Dirty Dozen is great. It's an awesome tool. I try to make it just part of the class and not the sole focus on the class. I like to bring it all into play and put it in the action to make sure that, once you have it's a different way of looking at it, different way of grasping it, because maintenance is unique. It's its own identity and it can't be just blended in with all the different operations. SMS is awesome. I deal with a lot with QMS, quality management systems, and then safety management systems. And that's one of the things where it's like, oh man, you're so close. There's so much more to mix together because there's a lot of quality in the maintenance side of the house. And there's a lot of tools that exist in a quality management system that can help and aid in the maintenance aspect. And it's just kind of like, that's just where the FAA was on the edge. It was like, you were so close. You were so close to doing it. And it's like, but they had to think about operations. And then, I've had discussions with them. I'm like, why safety? It's like, well, we had to think about operations. Our focus wasn't maintenance. Okay. So what I try to do is introduce also those QMS tools to say, hey, these are free tools. I'm not telling you to run out and get certified, but here's different free tools that are available to you to properly assess your maintenance, to properly track and trend, do your own analysis, to know what's going on internally in your organization. So you know where your weaknesses are, so you know what you can focus on, because all of those are the true signs that will begin to tell what's going to happen predictably. And so it's like you have the information. If you create the data, you create the analysis, and now you go, okay, now I know where to put my attention to. Now I know what to focus on within my organization to make it better.
Well, we're just so excited to have you be a part of the conference in Irving. I'm very much looking forward to sitting in on some of your sessions and learning something. And just in listening to you talk, this thought came into mind. Do you think in other industries outside of aviation that they have as many acronyms as we do in aviation? QMS, SMS,
Yeah, all of it. No, the medical.
Yeah.
I did being part of EMS, and when I worked at the hospital and I was on every committee as the maintenance manager, I had to sit in, and it was a whole different aspect to sit there and listen, to the ins and outs and workings of a hospital from the management perspective. And it was just, and I remember, even the director looked at me one time and she goes, I don't know how your industry survives.
That's funny.
I've never been in a situation where you had two industries that actually kind of like they're nowhere near each other, but you're still trying to accomplish the same goal, So it's like, but she was just like, I don't know how your industry even stays alive.
Yeah.
Like Leslie said, I'm excited for your course. I'm really excited for the accident investigation portion of that.
Yeah.
As painful as it is sometimes to visit those conversations, I think it's critically important. I think, look at a lot of these mishaps that take place, and what we're doing by debriefing these and learning is turning a negative into a positive. And I think nobody wants to die in vain. But a lot of the regulations that exist in aviation are written in blood, unfortunately. And I think it's our duty to take those negatives and learn and save lives as we go. So I don't want to say enjoy those conversations, but I think there's a lot of value there. I don't think there's lessons that can be learned in any more of an impactful way than analyzing something that went, dramatically wrong, because it illustrates how bad things can go.
Oh yeah. And that's
not
one
just
of the
pointing fingers, but actually digging into the root cause there and figuring it out so that it doesn't happen again. Pointing fingers at that point is, it doesn't do any good.
Right.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Yeah, it's not it doesn't change anything. I think the biggest part is what I've realized, and this is just kind of the stuff that I've been looking at. It's amazing when you take they would be considered, there's some of them that are be considered just routine, average, not significant, and then when you start beginning to analyze the failures and looking at it, and it's just astounding. That it's just like, no way. No, and that's what, that's why I said stirs those conversations. We'll get into that and it'll be fun. And that's why, and I'm thinking hard about the approach and making sure that, like I said, because of knowing who, what operators and, so it'll be sterile. I'm not going to point any fingers at any operators specifically. I'm not going to sit there and call anybody out. I'm going to try to make it just all educational, that we learn from each other, because that's just how the industry thrives and grows. If we didn't look at this stuff, it's like you said, we would never get better. We would never figure out what everybody's, what we're doing wrong, how to improve.
I'm definitely not here to throw stones, here to learn and here to improve as a community and as an industry. It can't do that unless we're willing to look introspectively at ourselves and like, how do we do this thing better? I think it's really important. And that's, going back to leadership, checking your ego at the door. It's very important. That's how you grow as a leader. That's how you grow as a maintainer, as a professional. So I think going into the conference, whether it's your class or any other class, checking your ego and be like, how can I best take this information to make my career better, to make our community better, will yield the best results, in my opinion. So, man, it's been awesome talking to you. We didn't even get through a ton of our outline. One thing before we close out that I do want to touch on, because I think it's really important to talk about because it took a lot of effort, is the book that you wrote. Can you kind of talk about the book you wrote and some of the motivations to write the book?
Yeah. So a handful of years ago, and I say handful, but it was actually, 10. So I was between traveling around the world and different stuff, and I was actually, what initiated was, it was like, man, Hollywood just doesn't have any good stories. And so what I wanted to do was like, what, but I didn't want another pilot story. And it's not insulting or disrespecting, but it was like, one of the things is when you look at the point of view from the crew members in the movies, right? And I can name off a handful. If you look at Blackhawk Down, and the crew chiefs that were in the back there, No Fear. You had Full Metal Jacket with the Get Some, and the guy on the 60 gunner, and even Perfect Storm. It was the crazy Coast Guard guys, and everybody, you could tell they're scared and the fear, and he's just sitting back there all cool, calm, and relaxed, In these cameos that they present the crew members as, is this whole onslaught of like, these guys are a little bit crazy, they're a little bit nutty, they're just not right, and they're totally comfortable in what they're doing yet, Mm-hmm. And it was almost like I wanted to explain the kind of why, how that is. And so what I did was actually, tell a story from that initial training as crew chiefs. I tell their story. So it's the title of the book is 15 Tango. It's a 15 TANGO. It's on 15tango.com. It's also on Amazon. And what it is, it's the story of these 4 guys that became crew chiefs together. And it walks through, from the school and the fun that they have and learning and different stuff to where they're actually crewing, and then ultimately deployment, up to the little bit of the sacrifices and different things that take place. But I wanted to be able to give people that insight as to that there's the people that sit in the back, right? They have to put all their faith and trust into the pilots up front, and they have to control all the chaos that's going in the back. And so to understand that it's a critical role, and it's a totally volunteer role. This is, the Army doesn't say you will do this. They say, no, who wants to do this? And everybody raises their hand and they say they want to do it. And so I wanted to tell the story for everybody, kind of in honor of what they do, and then be able to sit there and relay to others, and also influence a younger generation where people are like, I know what I want to do now. Now I want to do, or, hey, I didn't know what that job was called. Now I know, that's awesome. They didn't know. So that's the biggest influence that I've seen in it, hands down, great story. It's not about me. I'm in the book, but I based it on character that is actually one of my good friends. And so he's the main character, and it's a great tale. So it's
That's cool.
I call it historical fiction. I leave it for everybody to try to figure out what is the what's the stretched truth, and it's all true. What's the stretched truth? And
Right.
so
That's the kind of stuff, that positive portrayal of the MRO community, I think, is what you start to see change, right? And I think it's really cool that you've highlighted the community through the book. Like you said, there's more than enough books that are about pilots and the glory of what that position is. There's not many publications that highlight the roles and responsibilities of the people who really make the missions happen.
Right.
You know, Linda Reno,
Well, it's a partnership.
our owner, came up with a saying recently that I love: no maintenance, no mission, and that's 100% true. You know, I think our industry is starting to realize how important that is. You know, and so I hope as we go, we see more stories like the one you wrote surface. But I give you a ton of credit, not only to promote the industry, but to write a book. I mean, that's a very cool thing to do. Not only is it cool, it's hard, you know, and something that I've wanted to do, but don't have the courage to take the first step and actually making it happen. So kudos to you for actually doing it. I know it took a lot of your time and effort and energy, and the ultimate goal behind it was to promote our industry. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, not a problem.
On that, as we start to wrap up, Leslie, any closing thoughts or last things that you might want to chat about?
Well, just what's near and dear to my heart, and that's the Vertical MRO conference. So anyone listening out there that is interested, go to verticalmro.com. All the information about both conferences are there, and as well as the registration site. So we would love to see you at either conference, but would really love to see you in Irving sitting in one of James's sessions. So yeah. James, just really appreciate your support of this event and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. John as well.
Yeah, I guess as we close, in addition to anything you might want to bring up that we didn't touch on, because there's quite a bit we didn't even get to talk about, but you know, what message would you share with young folks who are considering a career in the MRO industry, specifically in helicopter aviation?
Do it.
Just do it.
You know, and it's amazing because when we sit there and talk about the baby boomers, you know, or we talk about the generations that were ahead of us, there were a lot of people that were like, "Don't get into aviation, don't do it." And I remember everybody was just like, "What?" And they were, you know, no, there's no money, there's no this, there's no that, and I was just like, there were, and so now, you know, I'm like, if you're passionate about it, if something draws you towards it, then just do it. Is, you know, the technician world is coming back, you know, and I want to exactly figure out how to phrase that correctly, but you know, the maintenance aspect, you know, and the technical skills are being required. And so within that, there's a push, and you can see it across all of the states, across all the technical schools, the colleges, the universities, everything else. As much as everybody wants to sit back and you know, do whatever as a career, but it's understanding that, you know, as a career-wise in aviation is not a bad road whatsoever. It is, you know, it's something to take pride in. You realize how small the industry is. You realize how small the helicopter industry is. And it doesn't take a whole lot to put you on the map and be part of it. And that's what's really fun and exciting about it. You know, I like seeing when we go to these conferences, or like even the, you know, Verticon or the MR, you're guaranteed you're going to run into people that you know. It is a very small industry. And so it's what makes it fun. It's almost just like this big, huge, happy family. And I remember the point for the young people, if you're currently in the industry, as important as it is with the operator that you're working with, take a look at the entire industry, because it's amazing when your eyes are opened and you realize that there's this whole industry that exists, and not just like, oh, not just where I work in this one hangar or this one, you know, airport. There's this whole global industry that exists, you know, and they all come together and share that knowledge and experience. And you realize nobody hoards it. Everybody loves to tell their story. Everybody loves to help each other out. It's a great community to be part of.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think the community as a whole is one that we're all proud to be a part of. You've brought up the word passion a lot throughout our conversation. But I think that's the one thing that kind of unites everyone in this industry, is we're all passionate about the thing that we do, and the missions that we support. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. Love talking to you. The one thing that I kind of think of, you know, throughout our conversation and looking at the information as it relates to your company, is the outside the box thinking that you yourself promote and that your company promotes. I love that outside the box thinking. You know, Leslie and I were just talking earlier, we can't keep doing the same things that we're doing, expecting better results. We got to look at new and innovative ways to, you know, look at bringing new folks into the industry, changing the way work's done, making it more effective and efficient. And you guys you're doing that, your company. Mm-hmm. Again, thank you for your passion. Thank you for your help with the MRO conference. It's going to be great. Look forward to seeing you and all of our listeners there. Again, verticalmro.com. And until then, we'll catch you later. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Rotorcraft Support Inc., where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified, Part 145 repair station, and OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry. Thank you to our sponsor, HeliLadder. Enhance your fall protection and maintenance efficiency with HeliLadder, the industry standard of ladder workstands. The iconic orange MX5 system is fully modular and compatible with countless aircraft models for any type of operation, making you money by preventing accidents and reducing maintenance errors. For a free quote and special discounts, visit heliladder.com. Focus on your work, not your balance.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast. We hope you found James Simmons' insights on his career journey, industry challenges, and efforts to develop the next generation of aviation professionals as inspiring as we did. His dedication to advancing rotorcraft maintenance and fostering new talent underscores the vital role leadership and training play in shaping the future of our industry. Don't miss the upcoming Vertical MRO Conference, where industry leaders like James are shaping the future of rotorcraft maintenance. Stay tuned for more conversations with industry experts, and thanks for listening.